Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm a network security engineer with over 10 years of experience working in Fortune 500 companies, designing secure infrastructures, managing firewalls, VPNs, SIEMs, and leading incident response. I've been both a candidate and an interviewer, and today I'm sharing real-world interview questions and answers to help you confidently prepare and succeed. Yes, we'll dive into practical responses from a network security engineer's perspective. These answers are based on real scenarios using tools like Cisco ASA, Palo Alto, Splunk, and VMware. Let's get into it. Question: how do you configure and manage firewall rules? In my role as a network security engineer, I've had experience configuring and managing firewall rules across multiple enterprise-grade platforms, including Cisco ASA, Palo Alto Networks, and Checkpoint. When it comes to firewall rule management, I typically follow a structured methodology. First, I review the existing firewall rule sets to understand the current security posture and identify any potential gaps or overly permissive rules. I then work closely with the security and network teams to understand the business requirements and risk appetite. For example, at my previous organization, we used Palo Alto firewalls across our hybrid infrastructure. I would regularly review the rule sets, identify unused or redundant rules, and work with the application owners to optimize the policies. This helped us reduce the attack surface and ensure the firewall rules were aligned with the principle of least privilege. In addition to rule reviews, I also configure firewall policies to implement robust access controls, inspect traffic for threats using IPS/IDS capabilities, and enable SSL/TLS inspection. I leverage features like user-based policies, application identification, and geographic traffic filtering to enhance the granularity of our security controls. Throughout the process, I emphasize collaboration with stakeholders, documentation of changes, and adherence to security best practices and compliance frameworks like NIST. My goal is to maintain a secure, efficient, and well-documented firewall configuration that supports the organization's security and business objectives. Question: what tools have you used for IDS/IPS, and how do you respond to alerts? I've used tools like Cisco Firepower, Palo Alto Threat Prevention, and Splunk. I fine-tune detection rules, test known attack patterns, and reduce false positives. In Panorama, I've investigated alerts with packet captures and correlated logs. If verified, I escalate to the SOC and support containment by updating ACLs or blocking malicious IPs. Question: how do you perform vulnerability assessments and what tools do you rely on? Nessus is my go-to scanner. I deploy Nessus scanners across our on-premises and cloud environments to assess servers, network devices, web applications, and endpoints. The comprehensive vulnerability data provided by Nessus allows me to gain a detailed understanding of the organization's risk profile. I also leverage other vulnerability assessment tools, such as Rapid7 Insight VM and Microsoft Baseline Security Analyzer, to complement our scanning capabilities. These tools help me identify misconfigurations, missing patches, and vulnerabilities specific to operating systems and software. I scope and prioritize critical assets, run authenticated scans, and triage results based on CVSS scores and exploitability. For remediation, I work with system owners and DevSecOps to patch, reconfigure, or mitigate risks. Reporting includes dashboards, KPIs, and compliance alignments. Question: describe a time you implemented or maintained a VPN solution. How did you ensure it was secure? I deployed Cisco AnyConnect for a hybrid environment with over 2,000 users. First, I worked closely with the network and security teams to define the VPN access policies, leveraging features like multi-factor authentication, role-based access controls, and granular IP address restrictions. This approach allowed us to enforce the principle of least privilege and limit access to only the necessary resources based on the user's role and location. I also configured the VPN servers to use strong encryption protocols such as AES 256 and SHA 256, and of course, disabled any legacy or insecure ciphers. Additionally, I implemented split tunneling to ensure that only the necessary traffic traversed the VPN, reducing the attack surface and improving performance for remote users. To keep an eye on things, I integrated the VPN logs with our security information and event management system, Splunk. This allowed us to monitor VPN activity, detect any suspicious behavior, analyze user connections, identify anomalies, and respond quickly to potential security incidents. Question: how do you use PowerShell for network administration or cybersecurity tasks? Can you give an example script you've used? PowerShell has been such a game changer for automating tasks in both administration and cybersecurity. For instance, I've created scripts to pull ASA configs, check those against policy baselines, and push updates when needed. It's been super efficient. Another example would be a script I built to silently install and configure Global Protect clients. I also use PowerShell to pull reports from Nessus, automate patch compliance checks, and even manage Active Directory group memberships. It's a really powerful tool, no doubt about it. Question: how do you manage and monitor a SIEM solution? And how do you respond to alerts? When it comes to managing the SIEM, I start by ensuring that all the relevant data sources are properly integrated and configured to feed into the Splunk environment. This includes security logs from firewalls, IPS IDs, cloud services, endpoints, and various other network and security devices. I work closely with the IT and security teams to identify the most critical data sources and ensure they are properly mapped and indexed. Once the data ingestion is set up, I focus on developing and fine-tuning the SIEM's detection and alerting capabilities. I create custom dashboards, reports, and alerts to monitor for signs of potential security incidents, such as suspicious user activities, unusual network traffic patterns, and indicators of compromise. When an alert is triggered, I immediately investigate the incident, analyzing the relevant logs, threat intelligence, and contextual information to determine the scope and severity of the threat. If the alert is deemed a legitimate security incident, I escalate it to the incident response team, providing them with the necessary details and insights to initiate the appropriate response actions. Throughout this process, I collaborate closely with the SOC, Security Operations Center team, sharing my technical expertise and working together to fine-tune the SIEM's configurations, optimize the alert logic, and improve the overall incident response capabilities. This ensures that the SIEM remains a reliable and effective tool for detecting, investigating, and responding to security threats in our dynamic hybrid infrastructure. Question: can you explain how you would conduct a forensic investigation after a suspected breach? Well, first, I isolate the affected systems and preserve volatile memory. Then, I collect logs, network captures, and disk images using tools like FTK Imager. My analysis process includes hash verification, timeline analysis, and even malware reverse engineering when necessary. After that, I produce a detailed report outlining indicators of compromise, the initial attack vector, lateral movement within the network, and the data that was impacted. And of course, lessons learned are always integrated into incident response playbooks to strengthen future defenses. Question: describe your experience with VMware. How do you secure virtualized infrastructure? Well, in my experience, I secure them by hardening SXE hosts, enabling lockdown mode, and segmenting traffic using distributed switches and the distributed firewall. Logs are forwarded to a SIEM for better visibility and monitoring. I've also utilized tools like Nessus and PowerShell scripts to keep an eye on compliance and vulnerabilities. Additionally, I enforce strict snapshot policies and control template access to prevent the creation of shadow VMs. Question: what's your approach to maintaining network segmentation and access controls in a hybrid IT environment? In a hybrid environment, which typically consists of on-premises infrastructure and cloud-based resources, I start by clearly defining the network architecture and security zones. This involves creating a logical segmentation plan that aligns with the organization's business requirements, risk profile, and compliance needs. For the on-premises network, I leverage enterprise-grade firewalls, such as Palo Alto Networks or Cisco ASA, to implement robust access control lists, ACLs, and zone-based policies. These firewall configurations allow me to restrict the flow of traffic between different network segments, ensuring that users and applications only have access to the resources they need. To extend this segmentation into the cloud, I work closely with the cloud team to configure virtual network peering, network security groups, and cloud-native firewalling solutions, for example, AWS Network Firewall, Azure Firewall, to maintain consistent access control policies across the hybrid infrastructure. In addition to network-level segmentation, I also implement role-based access controls, RBAC, and zero-trust principles to govern user and application access. This includes integrating identity and access management, IAM, solutions, such as Azure AD or Okta, to enforce multi-factor authentication, granular permissions, and just-in-time access for privileged users. Question: how do you manage hardware inventory and track network assets across departments? I've implemented a comprehensive asset management program to ensure we maintain visibility and control over our infrastructure. First and foremost, I work closely with the IT and procurement teams to establish a centralized asset management system. This typically involves using a tool like ServiceNow or Microsoft SCCM to maintain a detailed inventory of all network devices, servers, endpoints, and other hardware assets. For each asset, I ensure we capture relevant information, such as the device type, manufacturer, model, serial number, location, ownership, and the assigned user, if applicable. I also track the purchase date, warranty information, and any maintenance or upgrade history to keep this inventory up to date. I've implemented a few key processes: asset tagging and labeling. All new hardware assets are assigned a unique identification tag, which is then scanned and logged into the asset management system. Periodic audits. I schedule regular physical audits, where my team and I physically verify the existence and location of the assets and reconcile any discrepancies in the inventory. Question: how do you ensure compliance with HIPAA, NIST, or HITRUST in your daily operations? Given the sensitive nature of the data and systems I'm responsible for, I've developed a multifaceted approach to maintain compliance and mitigate risks. For example, with HIPAA, I ensure that we have robust access controls, encryption, and audit logging mechanisms in place to protect the confidentiality and integrity of protected health information, PHI. This includes configuring role-based permissions, implementing two-factor authentication, and enabling full disk encryption on all devices that handle PHI. When it comes to the NIST cybersecurity framework, I leverage the core functions: identify, protect, detect, respond, recover to guide my security strategy. I conduct regular risk assessments, implement defense in-depth controls, monitor for threats, and have well-defined incident response and disaster recovery plans. For HITRUST, which is a comprehensive security and privacy framework tailored for the healthcare industry, I work closely with the compliance team to ensure we meet the necessary control requirements. This involves activities like conducting third-party assessments, maintaining detailed documentation, and continuously monitoring for changes in the framework. Throughout this process, I emphasize collaboration with cross-functional teams, such as IT, security, and business stakeholders. This allows me to align the security controls with the organization's risk appetite and operational needs, while also ensuring compliance. Question: can you walk us through how you document and report findings from a security audit or risk assessment? Well, my reports typically start with the scope and methodology. Then I move on to categorized findings, severity rankings, and the impacted assets. Every issue is paired with its root cause, a risk assessment, and actionable recommendations. I deliver concise summaries for executives and detailed technical documentation for engineers. Oh, and I also use status dashboards to track remediation progress. Question: have you ever developed or updated a company's cybersecurity policy? What was the process like? Absolutely. I've worked on policies for acceptable use, endpoint protection, and cloud security. I make sure the drafts align with NIST or ISO standards, then gather feedback from legal, HR, and IT teams. Once finalized, these policies are rolled out with mandatory training sessions. They're reviewed every 6 months or after any incidents, and version control along with sign-off workflows help maintain traceability. Question: how do you ensure users are assigned appropriate access privileges across systems? Well, I enforce role-based access control and group-based access through Active Directory or Azure Active Directory. For privileged accounts, I rely on just-in-time and just-enough access models. Logs are reviewed regularly for anomalies, and quarterly audits help maintain compliance. Plus, I use conditional access policies tied to device health and geolocation to restrict risky access attempts. Question: tell us about a security incident you handled from start to finish. What was your role and the outcome? One security incident that stands out in my mind was a suspected ransomware attack that occurred at my previous organization, a large manufacturing company with a hybrid IT infrastructure. It started when the Security Operations Center, or SOC team, alerted me to a significant spike in network traffic from several critical servers, accompanied by unusual file access patterns. Based on the initial indicators, we suspected a ransomware infection was in progress. As the network security engineer, my immediate priority was to contain the spread of the malware and prevent further damage. I quickly isolated the affected systems, shut down network connectivity, and initiated our incident response plan, collaborating closely with the incident response team and the SOC analysts. I then proceeded to gather forensic evidence, including network traffic captures, system logs. Working with the cybersecurity and IT teams, we were able to identify the initial point of entry, which was a vulnerable web application that had been exploited. Next, I configured the firewalls and network devices to block the known malicious indicators, such as command and control server IP addresses and suspicious domains. I also worked with the endpoint security team to deploy emergency detection and remediation measures on all the devices across the network. In parallel, I engaged with the data backup and recovery team to verify the integrity of our recent backups and prepare for the restoration process. This was a crucial step, as it would allow us to recover the encrypted data and minimize the impact on business operations. Once the immediate containment and mitigation measures were in place, I shifted my focus to the investigation and root cause analysis. I collaborated with the incident response team to reconstruct the timeline of events, identify the attacker's tactics and techniques, and determine the extent of the data breach. Based on the findings, I worked with the security and IT leadership to develop a comprehensive remediation plan. This included applying security patches, hardening system configurations, implementing additional monitoring and detection controls, and reviewing our overall incident response procedures to improve our preparedness for future attacks. Question: what is your process for building and testing a disaster recovery or contingency plan? Building and testing a robust disaster recovery and contingency plan is a critical part of my responsibilities. I approach this process in a methodical and collaborative manner to ensure the organization's resilience and business continuity. The first step is to conduct a comprehensive business impact analysis to identify the organization's critical systems, applications, and data, as well as the potential impact of disruptions or disasters on business operations. I work closely with the IT, security, and business teams to gather the necessary information and prioritize the recovery objectives. Based on the business impact analysis findings, I then develop the disaster recovery and contingency plan, which outlines the specific strategies, procedures, and resources required to restore the organization's IT infrastructure and return to normal operations. This plan covers various scenarios, such as natural disasters, cyber attacks, and system failures. Key elements of the plan include recovery strategies. I define the recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives for each critical system, and then determine the appropriate recovery strategies, such as data replication, failover mechanisms, and alternate site configurations. Roles and responsibilities. I clearly define the incident response team structure, including the roles and responsibilities of key personnel, to ensure effective coordination during a disaster. Communication and notification. I establish a communication plan to notify stakeholders, including employees, customers, and external partners, about the incident and the recovery efforts. Backup and restore procedures. I document the detailed steps for backing up and restoring data, applications, and systems, ensuring the processes are well understood and can be executed efficiently. Testing and validation. I regularly conduct disaster recovery and contingency plan exercises, such as tabletop simulations and full-scale failover tests, to validate the plan's effectiveness and identify areas for improvement. I also incorporate lessons learned from these tests into the plan's ongoing refinement. Question: how do you prioritize and handle multiple simultaneous security alerts or system failures? Well, I've had extensive experience in prioritizing and managing these kinds of situations, and let me tell you, it can get pretty intense. In these high-pressure moments, I always rely on a structured approach to triage the incidents, coordinate the response, and most importantly, ensure the organization's security and operational continuity. First and foremost, I make sure to have a well-defined incident response plan in place. This plan outlines the escalation protocols, communication channels, and the roles and responsibilities of all the teams involved. It's honestly invaluable because it allows me to quickly activate the right resources and follow a standardized process when I'm dealing with multiple issues at the same time. When these simultaneous alerts or failures come up, my first step is to assess the severity and potential impact of each incident. I use the organization's risk management framework, along with industry-standard threat intelligence, to categorize the alerts. I look at factors like the type of threat, the affected assets, and the likelihood of successful exploitation. It's all about quickly understanding what's most critical. For high-severity incidents that pose an immediate risk, I escalate them right away to the Security Operations Center team and the Incident Response team. I make sure to provide them with all the relevant details, things like the affected systems, the nature of the threat, and any initial containment measures I've already taken. This way, those specialized teams can jump in and coordinate the investigation and response efforts effectively. Now, for medium to low priority alerts or failures, I work closely with my network and system administration teams. Together, we triage and address these issues in parallel. I assign tasks and responsibilities based on each team member's expertise and availability, making sure that critical systems and services are restored or protected as quickly as possible. Question: describe a time you had to explain a complex security issue to a non-technical stakeholder. How did you approach it? One incident that stands out in my mind is when I had to explain a complex security issue to the CFO of my previous organization, a large manufacturing company. The issue involved a suspected data breach that had the potential to expose sensitive financial information. So, when I was briefing the CFO about a data breach, I made sure to frame the issue around regulatory risk, customer impact, and financial liability. To make it easier to digest, I used charts to simplify the attack vectors and then suggested immediate actions we could take. The clarity of that approach really helps secure funding for endpoint detection and response upgrades. Question: how do you stay current on cybersecurity threats, tools, and trends? To stay ahead in cybersecurity, I subscribe to threat feeds like CISA and Mandiant, participate in ISAC briefings, and keep an eye on vendors' zero-day alerts. I also hold CSP and SANS certifications, attend events like DEF CON and Black Hat, and experiment with tools in my personal lab. On top of that, I lead internal knowledge-sharing sessions to keep the entire team informed and prepared. Question: what soft skills do you think are essential for a network security engineer? And how have you demonstrated them in your role? Honestly, communication leadership and adaptability are absolutely essential in this role. I've had the opportunity to lead cross-functional incident response teams, conduct user security training sessions, and adapt controls during rapid cloud migrations. Being proactive and collaborative really helps build trust and drives effective security outcomes. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into network security interviews. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments which question you'd like me to break down even further. Stay secure, and I'll see you in the next video.